Thank you for everyone who's made this conference possible today. A special thanks to Anna Kryloff for squeezing me on the program at the last minute. I'm here today because I've edited a book of 20 faculty stories in which professors recall being investigated, disciplined, and sometimes fired by their universities. Here's how this book came into being. In 2016, I was a bog standard mid career academic who taught at the University of Utah for almost 20 years. I'd had some trouble with the university over the years, a difficult tenure case and the failure of my first bid for promotion to full professor, but I thought all this was in the past. Thus, I was thoroughly confused when the Utah Office of Equal Opportunity and Affirmative Action informed me that there were sexual misconduct allegations against me. I only came to campus to teach and didn't attend meetings, socialize with colleagues, or regularly mentor graduate students. Indeed, I didn't even live in Utah. The complaint itself didn't make much sense. I learned I was being investigated for, among other things, telling some colleagues way back in the late 1990s that I had proposed to my ex wife at a strip club. 5 years and two further investigations later, I was still teaching at Utah, uh, but I was $25,000 poorer after paying all my lawyers. I'd also lost hundreds of hours of my time in meetings, writing briefs, and doing all of the things you do when someone is coming for your tenured position. I learned what all my authors learned: the process is part of the punishment. Some months after that first investigation had wound down, I read what Northwestern's Laura Kipnis had written about her own investigation, and it sounded a lot like mine. Up until that point, I'd been under the impression that my university had just come up with a novel way to torment its faculty. But now I learned I was part of a national wave of investigations that stemmed from 2011 Department of Education guidance. That year, the Department of Education had declared an epidemic of sexual misconduct on campus and established new penalties for universities that failed to police conduct on sexual misconduct on their campuses. In the process, the Department of Education had created a system of perverse incentives for universities to investigate anyone accused of misconduct, no matter how frivolous. An administrative regime originally established to remove genuine monsters like Larry Nassar at Michigan State or Jerry Sandusky at Penn State was now ensnaring folks like me. Laura Kipnis was investigated over an article she wrote, or Reginald Robinson at Howard University, who was investigated for 504 days, all over an ill conceived test question that mentioned bikini waxing. My first investigation was the product, I learned eventually, of a colleague settling a 20-year-old score. Score settling was also at the heart of the investigation endured by Arizona State's Sarah Viren in a well publicized article she wrote in 2020 in the New York Times Magazine. And I learned once they investigated you once, you're in the crosshairs, so they'll probably target you again and again. After hearing about Laura Kipnis's woes, my immediate response was to join her in speaking out. Almost a decade later, I published about 6 articles about my sundry investigations and twice spoken at Department of Education open hearings. I also became involved with Families Advocating for Campus Equality, a nonprofit that provides peer counseling for people falsely accused of sexual misconduct on campus. I became their faculty coordinator, the guy that spoke to all faculty members that reach out to us. Under my guidance, 2 of the folks I talked to wrote about their own investigations. Both of them had it worse than me as they'd been forced into retirement. Uh, I both contributed chapters to this book. I became aware that there was a lot of untold faculty stories, a sense that was only exacerbated by the ideological tidal wave that was the year 2020. I decided to edit a collection of these faculty investigation stories. Word of mouth provided some contributors, but most came from FIRE's Scholars Under Fire database. That database has over 1,300 names on it, so I could probably spend the rest of my career editing new editions of Professors Speak Out. 3 of the people I solicited stories from expressed an interest in contributing, but said they were bound by non disclosure agreements. They must have feared the loss of retirement benefits or perhaps even prosecution. Two of the three teach or taught at top 10 schools. One can reasonably be described as the most eminent living member of his or her field. And no, it's not Noam Chomsky. A plurality of the 20 stories in the book concerned allegations of racism, which is the likely product of soliciting contributions between 2021 and 2022. If I went out today to solicit 20 more stories, most would involve allegations of anti Semitism or Islamophobia. I can't do the 20 stories in this book justice in 8 minutes or even 80, so here are a couple of the highlights. Inside, you'll read about the law professor teaching about discrimination in the law who endured 8 months of scrutiny and re education for writing the N word as N dash 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 in a test question. Or the tenured Canadian economist fired for taking on the entrenched class of attorneys who claimed to speak for Canadian First Peoples. The communication studies professor whose in class exercise was ultimately denounced by his state's governor and U.S. senator, or the professor of education who was made the sole member of a graduate program at his university for just the crime of calling an academic conference a woke joke. One of the things about the book I'm most proud of is its diversity. To be sure, the book is diverse on important traditional metrics like the race and sex of the authorship. But the book is also diverse in ways that are often ignored by the economy. Sorry, by the academy. Uh, the book includes conservative scholars depicted being attacked for their politics and left-leaning authors being attacked for theirs. Some of the left-leaning authors were assailed by conservatives, others were attacked by scholars and activists further to their left. The book includes a male professor being targeted for being a man and a female academic targeted for being a woman. The occupational credentials of the contributors are just as diverse. One of them holds the rank of distinguished professor at a research university. Another was a part timer teaching a single college class in her area of expertise. The book's authors also span the range of academic fields, from chemistry to philosophy. Outside of the academy, the authorship includes an Air Force colonel, an Antifa activist, and a successful professional artist. Three of my authors are on the program at this conference. Anyways, I'm excited about the book, and you should be too. It'll be released in the next couple of months. Thank you for your time.